It's hot in here. Jesus. So I'll take a sip of hot coffee because I'm a genius. That's a smart move. Big brain moment. All right, here we go. What's up, you goblets of fire? Mark with Cardbox Academy here, and today we're doing something fun. We're checking out our patron pick. Every month, our patrons get to decide on which video I am going to be, one video a month that I'm going to be reacting to, and it is Ben Dur's Scumprophet, along with Dickie Allen's the collaboration for Scumprophet. And I don't know if I've ever heard of a better song name than that, Scumprophet. I feel like in my D&D campaign, I want to make that a villain or something like that. So this is the pick from our patrons. We're gonna have a really good time talking about it. I've heard bits and pieces of it because sometimes my students, when I'm like, hey, talk to me, if it's like our first lesson, I'll be like, talk to me about your influences. Talk to me about, vocalists or performances that really kind of excite you. And oftentimes they will mention this song for good reason. So I've never heard it all the way through. I've never sat down and given it a listen, but I've heard probably like 10 seconds here, 30 seconds there. And it's going to be a lot of fun once the permutation is complete. Just kidding. Okay. Now, if you're new to the channel, again, my name is Mark. I'm the vocalist in 3 metal bands, Kardashev, Neverbreath, and Viremia. Although Kardashev is really the only one that's active right now. Got a new album coming out eventually. Not allowed to say when, contracts and all that. I'm just being silly. And my full-time job is that I am a vocal coach. I make this kind of content, and I specialize in teaching people how to make these gritty, gurgly, toilet bowl, Scumprophet-y types of noises safely and efficiently. So what I do here is I take the reaction format, I break it down, I try to have some fun with it, and I try to make it as educational as possible. And I tell you what they're doing, or if I'm not quite sure, I give you my best guess, because sometimes I'm not sure. Sometimes I hear a sound and I'm like, what the heck is even that? Now, with that being said, the last announcement is the winner of our raffle. It's kind of a raffle. Basically, our patrons, by participating in events, we have events every month. We've got listening parties on Friday nights, and twice a month we've got vocalist themes events. There's a karaoke night, karaoke afternoon, as well as like a talk session for vocalists, talking about what they're working on, their successes, their difficulties, motivational stuff, things like that. And our winner is none other than Full Stop, aka Darius, and the prize that you have won is a vocal evaluation with me, where I can give you some tips and tricks and show you how to make your gurgles better. Or if you're not interested in vocals, we can talk about whatever you want. But if you want to learn how to go I can help you start on that. But that being said, let's go ahead and let's get started. Scumprophet, SCUMFUCK, Scumprophet. Let's go. Okay, 40-ish seconds. Always. All right. I gotta stop it at some point. That's the first part that's recognizable to me, that break, and then that like that sound right there. Okay, so there are a couple things I want to talk about. With Ben, there's always a lot to talk about. And if you really want some interesting insight into his vocals, I did a video with him where he came on and we reacted to a song, one of their songs on their new album together. So you can check that out if you want to. But with Ben, there's always a lot to talk about. And it almost always, for me, sums up as resonance, right? Resonance is just my favorite thing about him because it's what makes his tone so distinct. Let's be honest. Metal vocals are a very maximal style, right? So they often don't carry the same amount of nuance or the same nuance as a clean singing voice would, right? But with metal vocals, we have like these steady, sort of purely distorted sounds that it can be difficult to put emotionality to. Now, listen, I'm a metal vocalist, so I'm not like hating on metal vocals right now, but what I'm saying is when you have a vocalist who can give it some unique flavors and flares, it's really interesting. Now, a lot of these are very deliciously low tones. And one of the first things that I always tell students, and I think it's important for all of you to know, is that we don't make our lows in our throat. Okay, that is a really important thing. A lot of the times, like, you know, if you were to just walk up to somebody on the street and say like, hey, make a low voice, they would push their larynx down and they'd be like, hi, this is my low voice, right? Hello, this is my low voice. But for our metal vocals, we don't really need to do that. We do that in our mouth, right? So if I have like a simple mid-tone, right, just like a mid, and I kind of bring it in, that's all happening in my mouth. Pop off the earphone there. Right? That's all happening in the mouth. And you can hear if I pull it away, right? It's back to that comfortable place. The goal is creating a large resonance chamber in the mouth to hold the sound waves inside as much as possible, right? So we curl the tongue so the sound waves bounce back and forth, folding over each other, amplifying. And then when they do leave the mouth, they've been growing and doing a lot of work in that space. It's kind of like blowing over a little pipette versus like a big glass jug, right? One is going to have a high tone, one is going to have a low tone. Now you can kind of hear the effect that this has if I use my clean voice, right? So if I'm here, hey, those are the same pitch. I'm not changing the pitch, but I'm getting a lot of low, right? I'm exemplifying, I'm bringing that resonance forward. So if you're having trouble with gutturals, which is, kind of a common thing for new and returning vocalists, getting that guttural sound down, think about creating a lot of space in your mouth and keeping your throat relaxed, right? If I take this, that's going to be a lot easier than shoving my larynx down, right? And trying to create the distortion there. High vocals were cool, but we've still got 4 minutes of song left. So he did this one really cool thing. Another thing that I like about Ben, I'll talk about real quick, is he started with his tongue very far in the back. I can't remember where it was in the intro, but so his tongue's really far back, and then he slides it forward to a. That's just a cool sounding movement. I like that. Okay, I like Picasso. Let's go. We can talk about those highs for a second. So those are the quintessential, like the very well-known and rightfully so, Dickie Allen high goblin-y screams. The thing about it that's interesting is that if you compare it to a lot of other of his vocals and a lot of other vocalists, it's not like super high, right? It's not crazy up there. But because he's shifting it so far forward, kind of doing the opposite of heh, heh, he's creating this very tight, concise package that sounds really nice, right? Now, I also did a video with Dickie Allen. That one was super interesting. And he mentioned he kind of starts with like a Bart Simpson voice. I've tried this since then. Doesn't really work the same way for me, but there are many roads that lead to Rome. If I'm going to butcher some sort of proverb or saying, that's what I'm going to do today. So he, like in the video, it's interesting. You should go watch it. He kind of like takes this voice, hi, right there. And he sort of goes, and then he sort of starts leaning on it. For me, if I was to go about that, when I was new to vocals, that would be kind of confusing for me. Although I'm sure for other people, it works great. For him, it works super well, right? For me, I would honestly take like a false chord grunt, like an old school quintessential false chord grunt, and be aware this won't give you the exact same result, because oftentimes when you have a bunch of different people with a bunch of different shaped mildly differently shaped vocal tracks, right? Different approaches to vocals. People can be going about things similarly, but still sound different because that's the nature of our vocal instrument, right? But if I was going to go about this to try to get something close, right? I'd probably start with just like a normal false chord grunt. Me. Like very old school, very, right? I would take that grunt, hey, And I would think about shifting it up and forward, like I'm making this movement with my voice. Hey, 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 right? Hey, hey, hey. Then I would actually add a little bit of strategic closure around the back of the tongue. This part actually made a lot of sense. He described it in the video he and I did together, where it's like the back of the tongue kind of coming up. And I'm also gonna, most of the time we want to raise our soft palate. I'm actually gonna drop my soft palate. So I'm kind of creating that noise. And if I do this little false chord grunt, hey, 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 there's definitely a little bit of Fry influence in there for sure. But that's, I'm taking basically just the concept of a grunt. Like going on right there. That's how I would do it. It doesn't sound exactly the way he does it. But he's got such a unique tone about him. Like we all have to, you can't blame us all for trying, right? But yes, if you're wanting to go towards higher screams in general, one thing I want you to think about less about is squeezing the throat, and more so about having your resonance up and forward. Just like with the lows, we were here. With our highs, that can be very helpful. If I take just like the basic false chord grunt and shift it upwards, we're going to get a very basic foundational high. Now, at some point, the high starts to feel different. You'll notice that you don't, or you'll likely notice that you don't feel any distortion at the top of the throat. It's mostly around the back of the mouth. Someday I'll make a video so y'all can see this, but you have these palatopharyngeal or palatine folds that can actually come in if you raise your soft palate and kind of breathe like this. And you're looking in your mouth, you can actually see them sort of like zip up. And when I'm screaming, a lot of distortion is, you can actually see the little flaps going like this. So when I'm doing a high scream and lifting it into that place, this isn't the perfect analogy, but it's similar to like bridging your vocal break, right? Smoothing that transition. I'm starting here and I've got that very false chord feeling where the distortion is at the top, but lower, like lower in the mouth, but at the top of the throat. And then as I lift it, let me get this mic out of the way. And then as I lift it, it's sitting right there, right? So last thing I'll say, and then we'll keep going, is one of the best things you can do to learn how to move your distortion is learn how to move your clean voice, right? We can do all this in various places of our chest voice, right? We don't have to go crazy. We can have like a low scream down here. Hey, 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 right? And then our high scream, that might sound really high, but if I just take that nasality off of it, right there, yeah, that's not that high for my voice, right? So something to think about. Resonance is the main way we're going to move our screams. Let's keep going though. We got a lot of song left. All right, that's a great place to talk. So I want to talk about that tone. But first, I just want to talk about like tone in general. One of the best things that you can do for yourself as a metal vocalist, and in many ways just a singer in general, is to try to find ways to create a good tone without a lot of volume. Admittedly, this can be tricky because every scream that I have ever done, and I have ever encountered, with maybe the exception of like just a narrative pure like power fry, as they call it, right, is a pretty projected voice. Even when I'm doing something quiet, like if I'm doing like a low level guttural, right? Right, my abs are definitely working behind that, but everything from here to here is tremendously relaxed. It's super easy once you get the hang of it, right? And the way that I was able to manage that is long ago, I was talking to my mom. This would have been 2013, I think. It's not that long ago, but long ago. And I was explaining to her how, because she is a singer and she was in a lot of choirs and everything, always just for fun. Although they did release an album, my mom and dad, back in the day. I don't think you can get anywhere though. But I was telling her, I was like, yeah, like these screams, which she hated, but she was open to talking about it. She was like, I was like, Mom, these screams, I have to scream so hard. I have to push so hard to make this happen. And she's like, well, Mark, I don't know anything about metal screaming, or I think at the time she called it screamo screaming. She's like, I don't know anything about screamo screaming, but I know that with singing, it's best to learn how to control things at a moderate speaking volume, which is often true. I don't know about always, but one of the best things you can do is take your scream, if it's really tough, and try to do it quiet. Now, if you've been over projecting for years, you're going to feel like you can't do it. I'm just going to put that out there now. You're not going to sit down at your desk, right? You're not going to sit down at your desk and all of a sudden in 5 minutes do your scream quieter. It's going to take you a while, right? It's going to take you days, weeks, maybe like a month, because your body is used to over projection. When what we're trying to do is we're trying to teach it balance, right? We're trying to teach it a balance between the support, right, and the resistance of airflow, creating a nice, not over compressed, but lightly compressed air chamber within your lungs, so that when you're holding a sound, the air is moving out of its own accord versus you shoving it past overly tightened or overly loose vocal anatomy, right? So if I was to do this again with like the low level false chord grunt, because the low level false chord grunt I feel like is the easiest for just the largest amount of people. I could be wrong, right? But if I'm to do that, that's it, right? That's it. There you go. I always tell new students who are learning false chord, like if you can grunt, and they're wanting to take that false chord and eventually do something else with it, I'm like, if you can grunt, if you can clear your throat, you can do this. Right now, be hesitant with the throat clearing, because that can be hard on your voice if you're over pushing it. But switch it to an aspirate onset, an H, if the glottal onset is tiring for you. Glottal onsets aren't bad. A glottal onset, by the way, is what we get at the beginning of the word, like They're not bad, but if you over project a glottal onset, it can make you kind of tired. It can cause some swelling on your vocal folds. Everything closes, air builds up. We get that sound. So switch to an aspirate onset, or a mixed ya wa ra, he ya wa ra ra. Now from there, what you can do is you can sort of like bounce on your feet, right? Now the reason you're bouncing on your feet is because you're hitting the ground. You want to go up and your heels hit the ground. The force of your body hits the ground, and then the force goes back up you. And that causes your diaphragm, which if you're breathing properly is pulled down flat, right? It's going to cause your diaphragm to go boop. And that's going to push your lungs up, move air out of your vocal anatomy, and you're going to be pretty comfortable. You're going to notice you're not squeezing your neck, right? If I do it with my clean voice, hey, I'm getting more volume, but I'm not squeezing for it. So if I do it with just like simple false chord sound, some people will do jumping jacks. I'm lazy, so I don't want to have to do all that if I don't need to. No, jumping jacks are fine. And then from there, you can start to feel, oh, okay, I can raise this distortion. I can amplify my voice without squeezing my neck, right? Right? And chances are you're going to want to eventually modify that sound a little bit. So then from there, you learn how to close in those arytenoid cartilages a little bit. Hey, swear, blah, 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 blah. And that is just as relaxed, just as comfortable. I've dealt with overprojection issues before in the past, so I know how hard it can be to teach yourself to let go, right? That's a barrier that I had to push through as well. I don't really remember how we got here, so we're going to get back to the song. And if I remember what I was originally going to say, I'll say it. But I think this was a really valuable lesson for a lot of new vocalists is you should focus on a comfortable and controlled scream before you focus on sounding as badass as possible, right? Because for me personally, a screamer who's very in control of their voice versus one who can sound cool for a song and then they're done, I'm more impressed over here. So start low, start slow. Hey, 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 you can kind of go from there. Let's keep going. I'm sorry, I'm already going to stop it. This is actually a really valuable thing. So one thing we can see now, admittedly, I make sure to say this every time because there's always somebody who doesn't know this. But admittedly, most music, let me get the cursor off of there. Oh my God, that's a sin. That's a federal crime. Sometimes a lot of people don't know this, but music videos are usually lip syncing, almost always. Right? Unless it's like a live performance or a vocal one take or things like that. Now, that being said, it looks like Ben was probably actually screaming along to make it look as real as possible, or he's doing really good movements. One thing I'm seeing here is that his jaw is dropped and back. Might be a little too far back for what would be comfortable for me, but you can actually get a lot of good tone and a lot of good projection. A lot of people tend to jut their jaw forward and tense the joint here. Jaw tension is going to be one of your main tone killers and one of your overall I swear I speak English. It's going to tire you out and it's going to kill your tone pretty quickly, right? And it's a hard habit to break if you allow it to come through. So letting our jaw relax, again, his looks maybe a little pulled back, right? But letting your jaw relax, slightly back. Like if I have a note here, hey, let's pick that one. Hey, right? I'm not really doing a lot I'm not pushing. You heard my voice get louder, right? Right? I'm not actually, except for that little crescendo I did, I'm not pushing much harder. And on that crescendo, it was almost nothing, right? Because I'm relying on resonance to amplify my voice. Again, when these sound waves bounce around properly in our mouths, running into each other, folding over each other, they amplify. So then we can get volume just from like the physics of sound, right? Now, listen, I'm not like some super duper knowledgeable audio file. I know what I need to know to teach people and to make awesome sounds like this. Although, if you are very interested in the acoustics or just like the properties of sound, there's a YouTube channel called Sounds Good. That's what it's called, Sounds Good. And every time I watch one of her videos, I feel smarter and also kind of stupid because I'm like, holy crap, there's a lot I don't know, right? But the jaw dropped and back is a really good way to open up your tone. Just make sure you're not pulling it back too far. So like you're choking yourself. Your jaw should never feel tension here, right? Warm it up, shake it out, stretch it. If I do that with a scream, right? Right, you can hear the difference in tone that it creates. Now, that's not to say jaw forward isn't bad. He has moments in this song where he kind of grits his teeth and juts his jaw forward. That sounds cool too. Just be aware that you have multiple positions that you can put your jaw in to affect your tone. And as long as you're relaxed about it, have at it. Have fun. That was cool. Yes. Did Dickie Allen just disappear for that part? I want to listen to that again because I want to talk about it, but it seems like there was just like an empty space. Probably did it on purpose. Okay, so now let's talk about the exact opposite. One of the reasons that I really like screaming, I really like metal screaming. I sound like I'm like, I don't know. It's a weird way to say it. I like metal screaming. One reason I like metal vocals is because it's such a playground, right? If any of you have heard Kardashev before, you know that I do also the clean singing, right? And I really like singing clean. I think it's an important skill for all vocalists to have. I think if you're a screamer, being able to at least hold your own at a karaoke night is going to go a long way for you with your screams, and is a good idea for everyone. However, when it comes to just like pure satisfaction, I enjoy screaming more. I like screaming more than I like singing clean, right? Now, part of the reason for this is because we have a lot of room to just play around, right? In Dickie Allen's tone here, he's very closed. Now, when we're closing down, we do need to have a very good understanding, even if like we couldn't write it out on paper, we've worked on it for some time, of a nice even airflow and a relaxed throat. I talk about that a lot because it's really fundamental for pretty much all singing. Activated core, breath support, relax the throat, right? Utilize that diaphragm, which again, the diaphragm drops flat, we squeeze our abs and it pushes up. That's what utilizing your diaphragm means, right? You breathe in. When you vocalize, hey, 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 oh, yeah, yeah, right? Squeezing here, not here. Now, what he has is a very closed and muffled and sort of mumbled tone on purpose. It's kind of giving me like a slam vibe, and it sounds very, very cool. I want to listen to it one more time so I can kind of hear the tone. Again, Dickie's tone is super unique to him. And it's not one I've ever been able to replicate perfectly. I will say I wish in this mix he was a little bit more forward when he and Ben are screaming together. There's one spot where I can see Dickie Allen doing like a very Travis Ryan like tongue movement, right? And he makes it sound so cool, and it was kind of lost to me. So that's my only criticism so far, is that I wish Dickie's parts were a little bit more forward, because I think he and Ben vocally work together really well, and I just wish that contrast was a little bit more there. That's all. Amazing song still, though. But let's check this out. I want to hear his tone one more time. Yeah, so we're getting a lot of really, really muffled, quiet, like there's a lot of Fry influence in there for sure. And I'm not gonna be able to hit it the same way he does. I'm gonna do it in my way, just to kind of show you how the mouth can kind of affect it. So if I get kind of like a low level tone. No, I don't think he has his tongue connected. I was doing it with my tongue on like connected to the alveolar ridge, which is that bumpy spot behind and like above and behind your top teeth. I actually don't think he's connected. I think he's doing more like this. Ooh, ooh. Yeah, he's got some airflow in there too. Yeah. And then at some point it sounds like he's maybe tilting his tongue forward, getting like that sort of vomit sound. I had one person say to me once, they were like, "Oh, I hate that. It sounds like that's not, there's nothing good about that. It just sounds like puking." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, it sounds like puking. I love it." I love it. Right. Like that's part of the reason we like this, because it sounds so grotesque. Right. But if I take this like sound, right, so I'm getting like a very low level fry influenced sound, and you can hear me kind of, right, you can hear me activating that fry, which, by the way, when we're learning fry, it can be very helpful to start here. Oh, no, whoa. But eventually we're going to bridge the gap, and it's going to feel different. And it's going to feel very similar to like a more arytenoidal scream. It's going to be kind of multiple things combined. But if I activate that kind of down low, right, it sounds kind of neat. Again, he's way better at it than me, that's for sure. But my soft palate is dropped. My tongue is kind of bunched up in the back, and also tilted forward. Your tongue can move independently. It's the weirdest thing. Like, gently bite the back of your tongue and stick your tongue in and out of your teeth. That's probably a disgusting sound. And you can see that your tongue can act independently. So you can bunch it up in the back and move it forward. Just be careful not to add a lot of tension at the root of your tongue and push down. That can make it so that it's harder for you to move the air out, and then you'll be pushing against your vocal anatomy, and that can cause muscle strain, right? So even here, I'm pretty relaxed. And if your voice cracks while you're playing around with tones, just like Jurassic Park, see? No one cares. No one cares. All right, let's keep going. I have a lesson in 9 minutes. Holy crap. All right. We gotta move. So good. Gravity blast. That's disgusting, and I love it. So now I do have to go. Charts. Yeah, I've got 2 lessons back to back, and then 3 after that. So 2 lessons a break. Let's wrap it up here, because we're close to done. I do want to talk about a couple things though, right? Let's talk about that permutation is complete. Let me find it. So that's a lot of the same stuff I talked about before. His tone is just so stand out and unique. I love it. That gravity blast, so sick. This is a great example of exactly what I was talking about. Open to super closed. That would be terrible for singing, right? Because first of all, our tone would be like that. Permutation is complete, right? Somebody trying to sing like that, like just now, would sound like an idiot, right? But if we're here, this open tone, there we go. There's more roundedness, I think. Right? Very sick. Now, with that, you're gonna need very steady airflow. My favorite exercise for steady airflow is an exercise called Farinelli breathing. I don't have enough time to go into it right now. I'll make a mental note, AKA I'll forget. And maybe go over it in a subsequent video. But it's one of the best ways to just learn even nice airflow. So when I'm here, again, like if I almost guarantee, I can't be sure, but I almost guarantee that he could do this without all the because so much of that is performance, right? When you're relaxed, you could just sort of do this all day, right? It can be very, very comfortable to do. I also love that bend, right? That guitar, oh, so sick, right? There's so much more I could talk about. Let's listen to it. Let's go back to where he says permutation is complete. We'll listen to the outro again. I'll try to pay attention for anything else I want to talk to as we wrap it up. But like, let's just hang out and vibe. Okay, so two things I'll talk about. I got 4 minutes. Two things I'm going to talk about. One, where should we feel distortion? I am a firm believer in that 99% of our distortion should be from here upwards. Now, one thing I have noticed is that sometimes people of different vocal types have small amounts of variation in this. I don't think that as metal vocalists, we have to get really too caught up with our vocal type. A lot of people who are excited about singing, and I get it, they want, what's my vocal type? I'm a baritone, I'm an alto, I'm a bass, right? And that's cool. That's, it's good to know. But that's a lot more than just the notes you can sing, right? However, I have noticed that people who fit into like the tenor range of the world, and this is just observational, so don't like, this isn't based on like studies or anything like that. This is what I have experienced talking to people who like very definitively have like that tenor timbre, that tenor range, that tenor voice. You can tell that the structure of their body is built for that. I have noticed that sometimes they do have to get a little bit lower, right? They do have to feel the distortion a little bit lower than I would, right? Because I'm very comfortable. I'm very comfortable low. Notes like there. It's very easy for me. But there are some people where that note would be very difficult, right? And they do have to feel distortion a little bit lower. With that being said, I don't care what your voice is or as it's built, you should not feel distortion on or around the vocal folds themselves. Always above. For me, if I was to do that closed scream that Ben does, right? He's like saying an E. Or what was it? It was something like that. I don't think it was a pig squeal, but it was something like that. That distortion feels like a little swirling ball of gravel on my on the roof of my mouth. Right? So be aware that there may be a little bit of differentiation depending on how your vocal anatomy is built. But our vocal anatomy is never built so differently that it's like, oh, my vocal anatomy is like this weird anomaly. That's crazy, right? That's generally not the case. So a good rule of thumb, where your jaw curves, right? There and above, that's okay for distortion. As we get lower, Start testing your voice. Start checking your vocal folds. Singing like a little, like a little falsetto, seeing if your vocal folds have a hard time connecting. Because if they have a hard time connecting, you're going to have trouble. The last thing I'll say is, I feel like part of the reason that Dickie Allen's screams are so unique is because we talked about this in the video we did together, and I have not had a lot of time to explore it. I feel like what a lot of what us metal, deathcore, death whatever vocalists do with the front of our tongue, he does a lot with the back. I've caught a couple of his streams a long time ago, and in the conversation, he always talks about how it's coming from his tongue back here. And sometimes when I play around with that, so like normally if I was to do like a tunnel sound, I would go here. But I can get something similar, and this is me just playing around with concepts. I can get something similar. It's not quite the same, but if I right, it's interesting. It's kind of antithetical to a lot of what normally happens, but it sounds great. I don't know how, like that pure like TV static, like almost like pop rock sound that he has though. That's the wildest part. Anyways, it's 12 on the dot. So I got to go. I got a lesson right now, but we're going to end it there. To all the folks involved in Scumprophet and SCUMFUCK to create this excellent work, Songs to Banger. To my patrons, thank you so much for hanging out. Hope you got some value out of this one. Great pick, and I'll talk to you all soon. So, as always, sip of coffee, decaf. That's a lie. This one's not decaf. I'm being bad today. Many thanks. Much love. I'm out.